Alright, what's up, people? This video is kind of going to be a parallel slash follow-up slash not really to a couple of other videos I made. And this one is going to be about Buddhism, not Satanism. Now, the whole thing about why can I say that I'm both, kind of, sort of, whatever, maybe that'll be another video. Oh, maybe that'll be a book. I have no idea. So, which is it? Pile A or pile B? I don't know, man. I'm gonna take that meteor rock. Something about that meteor rock says that might be a little bit more potent. Holy fuck. That's crazy. That is some crazy shit right there. Alright, so where do we go with Buddhism 101? And actually, give me a second here. Gotta vote. Which, by the way, I definitely encourage everybody to do. Fuck, I thought I had autofocus on this bitch. I guess I don't. November 6th. Get out and vote! Your fucking future depends on it. Normally, okay, here's the deal. Normally, when you get Buddhism explained to you, they're gonna do something like this. They're gonna tell you a story about a dude that went looking for something, found it, had a couple pithy sayings, and then whatever. Then that whole general thing is expanded upon, cut down, expanded upon, cut down, etc. But normally what you'll hear them do is they'll talk about the Four Noble Truths, and then the Eightfold Path. But there's 12 yanas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce it to 1, and then I'm going to reduce it to 0. Because basically what I'm doing is I'm skipping you from kindergarten to fucking calculus in a matter of seconds. The fundamental truth of Buddhism is something called Anatman, which literally means no self. That's what it literally means. Now, as to what it really means in depth, well, there have been many a tantra written in order to try to expound this to a particular audience or another. What does it mean to deny a self? What is it you're actually denying? It would appear that the self is the one thing that is beyond all Cartesian doubt. I think, therefore I am. It seems to be the one thing that we can know beyond all doubt with 100% certainty, is that no matter what else, there is still a me. There is still an I. Not those two things you have right above your nose. I'm talking about me. You, a self, an individuated persona. I think persona is just Greek for mask. But anywho, the most deepest fundamental level of Buddhism basically says that Atman is an illusion. Well, shit. Now we're fucked. Because look, we already, through the process of Cartesian doubt, we've already arrived at the fact that the only thing that we can absolutely, fundamentally know with any, over 50% degree of certitude, in this case, what we would think has to be 100%, because fuck, who's experiencing it? It's not me. Right? That's the one thing that's beyond doubt. The unassailable premise. However, this is where it starts getting interesting. Well, not really. Okay. Wow. Because I don't write my shit down. So I'm just thinking about this now, and I'm like, okay, there's two ways to explain this. There's the top-down approach, and then there's the bottom-up approach. The top-down approach is you start with your metaphysics, and then you work your way down to, like, the reality that we inhabit. You know what I mean? That's the top-down approach of explanation. And then you have the bottom-up approach, which is like, you could call this the empiricist approach. You start with, that which, is at the bottom level, at the basal level, and then you work your way up towards some kind of metaphysical reality, or non-reality, or lack of definitive reality, or what have you. So there's two ways that this can be presented. And for me, I can do it either way. It tends to depend on whether I'm talking to somebody with a Western background in basically what I would call philosophy of science, versus somebody with an Eastern background. So I'm assuming that most of the people I'm talking to are Western. So I would tend to go with a more Eastern approach, which in my opinion tends to be a little bit more bottom-up. And so bottom-up is that's where you start with the critique. Through the cycles of doubt and empiricism. And so then what axiom do you rest that upon? That whole process. And see, this is you've heard me talk about this, maybe, or at least a topic related to this, which is ultimately the God problem. It's the problem of why the world is definitive needs an axiom, or a set of axioms, if you will. But almost everybody, see, this is the whole transition from polytheism to monotheism. You see this even in physics. It's like we're basically looking for one thing. We're looking for one thing, not one particle. No, it's more complex than just a particle. It's like an explanatory model, which is simple, and that, of course, in Western philosophy is somewhat of a relative term. It basically means simplest of available models. So there's always the possibility that even if you get something right, you can get the same right answer more simply. Think about the way you're taught calculus, and you'll immediately understand what I mean by that. Is that they teach you the hard way first, and then they're like, oh, well, there's this really simple way to get derivatives. But unless you understand the hard way, you really don't understand what's actually going on with the process. But, that's all beside the point. I hope I told you guys it's going to be a long video. Fuck, we're not even close yet. So you're starting from this premise of like complete criticism of the axiomatic on the nature of all models as relying upon some sort of axiomatic structure. And so you're critiquing that and you're saying, well, okay, so what is your axiomatic structure? And so you have to ask that of every system that's put before you, be it theist or atheist. You have to, say, I'm querying upon your axiomatic structure for the ultimate explanation of what? Conscious perception, right? What Kant called the phenomena of perception. The thusness of whatever it is you're experiencing at any particular moment. And then that you is always implied. So there is, and it took until Descartes to realize this, or at least, really set it down, is that seems to imply some sort of hard dichotomy between some internal self and some external world, thereby arguing for some sort of, Judeo-Christian soul, or something like that, some spiritual essence. And see, Buddhism at its heart is the ultimate rejection of that. At its heart, you can think of Descartes and Buddha, whichever, that's just a title. The teachings, they're all the same. It's just who they're being taught to and under what circumstances. All the teachings are all fundamentally identical. Whatever yana you pick, you can pick the lowest yana where people are literally worshiping, fucking clay pots and shit. I don't mean clay pots, but you know what the fuck I mean when I say a clay pot, right? And the shit that God was talking about in the second commandment or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Clay pots. But they're not teaching anything that's, fundamentally different from the innermost secret teaching of the innermost school. Like I said, within Dzogchen, there's these like 3 divisions. Semsde, which is my school, considered the lowest. Longede, that's the middle one, space class. And then the one that I could not remember was Men Gane, I think, or Megan Ne. The pronunciation escapes me at the moment, but it's the instantaneous transmission class, which is, like I said, I understand what they're doing, but to me, when I look at it, I see that level of teaching as almost like, okay, I can see it. I can understand what's going on there, which is like it's the instantaneous transmission. Like you touch somebody, like think about like, acupuncture or like pressure points or shit like that, right? So think that there would be some place that I could physically touch you and instantaneously transmit basically, it's like a mind snap. It's like in Buddhism, it's considered a mind snap. And normally what happens is, this is funny. I don't know, like, if this is Buddhism 101, but I don't know what level of Buddhism you might have gotten before this. Trust me, it's below 101. It's just like, forget everything that you think you know. The concept of nirvana is not what almost anybody thinks it is. in order to understand nirvana, you have to understand something called samsara, which is essentially delineated reality, measured reality. This is the numerical structure of reality. That would be samsara. And due to the fact that it is measured, it is also ordered. And the way in which it's ordered work on certain kind of scales of magnitude. So you can have organizational structures that are very large, and you can have organizational structures that are very small. And then you can have like any gradation in between. And any such selection of said properties might be called a universe or a reality subset, or however you want to envision it. And that these work on gradations. And so when you get to the level that is operative within the discussion that, let's say, we're having now, or that I'm having in this video with whoever might be watching it, within that level, there are those same gradations and like hierarchies of measurement or ordering principles. So these would be like, for example, you often hear it's, asked or said or what the fuck ever. I keep forgetting whether this is a problem they think they've solved or one that they know that they'll never be able to solve. Because honestly, I think those are both true at the same time. Because it's like, okay, well, why is this? Okay, so there's like 7. I forget how many it is. I just said 7 because, hey, it's a biblical number. And I got to try to keep it a little bit fair with the other side of, the whole Judeo-Christianity, Islam thing. Because they weren't dummies either. But, well, fuck it. Anywho, for the most part they were. But, whatever. See, because I don't even know what the fuck I was saying right now. That's why I slipped completely into that. Is because I'm just like shooting off the motherfucking rails here. You know what I mean? I think I need to go break the 26th Amendment again or something, but essentially you have what might be called ordered subsets. And so like each of these subsets, oh yeah, I was talking about the physical constants of the universe, and why is this, like Planck's constant is one, the gravitational constant is another, some shit like that. And then there's like 7 or 8 of these. There's the fine-tuning constant, there's whatever. I said 7 because it was a biblical number. Okay, now I'm caught up. Thank you so much for that refresher course right there that I had to slip through. Wow, that was weird. That was like moving sideways in time and shit there for a second. I don't know what the fuck was going on. But yeah, so like, why are these this particular measurement instead of just like, why do these numbers have to be the way they are? So either you say that it's necessary or it's contingent, and then you get into that same fucking problem, right? So no matter which route you go, you're always left with the same problem. And again, this gets to the hierarchy that I was just talking about, which is where you have organizational structures that are above you in clarity and in perfection level, etc., etc. Normally these are called heavens or better states of being. And then you can go down that level and you can get the lower states of being. And then like we're right in the middle, of course, because we always are. in every mythology. We're always right in the middle. And what Buddhism basically says is, 20 minutes in, is that whole concept of the who it's happening to, let me repeat that. The whole concept of who it's happening to is pointless. There is no persistent self through any level of organizational structure, from the highest to the lowest. This understanding is nirvana, which is the complementary aspect of samsara, which is non-dual because they both say occupy the same space. But all these are just metaphors, again, because we're talking about metaphysical space, not like real space-time. That's all those numbers and all those, axioms and everything that's derived from this particular universe among the multiverse of possible realities, which are generated by something called basically mind itself, which is just the zero. As you've heard me allude to this before. This is not like something I'm saying that's fucking new to people that kind of know where my philosophy comes from. It's just that you have the zero is basically, that's why when I hear these theories, I heard this shit come out and I was like, dude, I totally predicted this shit 5 years prior to that, but I did so in a private thought, in a private meditation, which is just, and this is a truth that is like something that I didn't discover it. It's fucking been known for a long time. Is that somebody proposed finally as a physicist, they proposed that the sum total of the energy in the universe is actually zero. And I forget who it was. It was somebody famous. And I was like, bingo. That's it. That's exactly what it is. It's what it is for all realities. They're all kind of like balancing acts. And this aspect of that explosion of, well, what I call it is, I call it the, in my terminology, because I might get to that sometime. The Tao of Satan might come out at some point. I call it the expression field. So once you get past extension, which is your primary characteristic of enumeration, which is the fact that things are relative measures, is that you have, after that, kind of like an infinite explosion of the expression field, which is the ways in which that, if you just take the zero as given, which is, I mean, it's the ultimate pass of Occam's razor. Is that you take nothing more than the zero or nothingness as given. That's your starting point. And then from that, you derive a multitude, actually an infinite multitude, of sets that are equal to that concept or deity or whatever you want to call it, the zero. Dharmakaya, which is like the fountain of all possible reality while at the same time not being a part of itself. It's like it's the answer to fucking Russell's paradox, in other words, without being a paradox. Because ultimately, And what Russell's paradox really does kind of expose about our metaphysics is that there is no way to actually get to something that is fundamentally true. There just isn't. Because there's always going to be a part of that that can be pulled down. Kind of like, that cartoon where somebody pulls a thread out of a fucking sweater and then the sweater kind of just disappears, inch by inch on the cartoon character. It's kind of like that. No matter how you ground reality, it always unravels. Unless you, again, start with that fundamental principle, which is Anatman. Which is, because in this case, Atman would be the unit, right? You think the unit off against which the physical world is measured. To say that itself is a part of the process, and hence ultimately equivalent to the zero. See, that's the samadhi, or the crack, the breaking of the breaking of the egg, the shell of the egg, to let the egg come out of reality. Except that always happens at every instant of every conscious thought. This is where it starts getting deep into where you really get into the secret teachings, because they don't want you to know is that it doesn't matter whether this is one of those things. It's like knowing what's really going on makes absolutely no difference to what's really going on. In other words, this is the ultimate shunyata, or emptiness, which is also, it's the twin teaching of Buddhism. At the end of the day, it is an empty teaching. But it's not nihilist either. We're talking flip sides of a coin. This whole conversation is happening on one side. Well, it's an infinite-sided coin, but it's only a two-sided coin at the same time. Or something like that. So once you get that, that's the fundamental teaching of all the schools of Buddhism, is Anatman, or no self. This is where it's called compassion, but it can be translated in a number of ways. Compassion in our, translation into the English tends to kind of take on some kind of a meekness characteristic. And you've heard this said about when Jesus said the meek shall inherit the earth, and that the word that's being translated as meek in that saying was basically somebody who had a sword but wouldn't pull it out unless he had to. So there's different connotations of that Buddhist teaching of compassion. But it's just really your level of understanding everything I just explained. And why you would think, okay, so like if you knew that as a fundamental thing, it makes nothing different. Everything still is the same. But there's a different conception of it. And that's the work. That's what each person, which is not even a thing, it's all part of the process. The process is the process. You understand that the process is the process. Yet you need to feel more attached to the process, except you don't. Because you realize either way it doesn't fucking matter. Because the process is the process. And it just keeps happening. All the while creating you and me as fictions. As persistent loci. See, I said it right this time. Of consciousness.